Pat Riley used to say, rotate 8, something 7, something 6, trust 5.
You gotta know, but you can't
I forgot. It was a long time ago.
Before his days as an ESPN broadcaster, Jeff Van Gundy was a 2-time NBA head coach and assistant on various teams, including on Pat Riley's staff on the Knicks from 1991 to 1995. Like Van Gundy just mentioned, it's been a while, so we'll forgive him for botching Riley's line about depth, which David Aldridge, who most of you know from skipping his cutscenes in NBA 2K, later corrected him on in this tweet.
It's time now to go courtside as we send you over to David Aldridge from the sideline. David, take it away.
Kevin, thanks.
Okay, David, much appreciated. And now time for halftime.
The Riley mantra JVG was attempting to repeat was use 8, rotate 7, play 6, and trust 5. Riley is one of the greatest minds the game of basketball has ever seen, was not unconventional in that thought of shrinking a team's rotation the deeper you are in the playoffs was the best strategy to win. Time and time again throughout NBA history, you see teams continue to trim and shorten their rotation as much as possible come the postseason. The Thunder are a team who bucked that trend and traditional belief this year on their way to winning the 2025 finals and becoming NBA champions. Last season, during the second round of the playoffs against the Mavericks, ESPN's Tim McMahon asked Mark Daigneault about his thoughts on Riley's aforementioned playoff mantra and his strategy to stay deep during the postseason.
Pat Riley had the old line about playoff rotations, play 8 plus 7. You're playing 10, sometimes 11. What's your philosophy in terms of, not really changing the rotation?
Well, I've never been more insecure about my philosophy than when you're throwing Pat Riley in my face. I mean, every team's different. This particular team is deep. The difference between player X and player Y is not very much. A lot of guys bring different things to the table, and I'm of the mentality that we may eventually need, I think we could need Kenrich Williams in a series, maybe this one. Really just the mindset of expanding our options, so that whatever we need, the guy, it's unfair to a guy, to need him and go to him in a big spot when you have to like dust him off to get him there. So trying to keep everybody engaged, trying to keep everybody ready, give everybody a chance. Wiggins is a great example last night. Like, he was huge for us last night. I didn't go into the game knowing that was going to be the case. He didn't play till the second quarter. So if you cut down to 7, maybe you're not playing him on a given night. So, it's what we've done all year. It's what we trust.
Although this is a question and quote from last year, I think it still rings true with the team we just saw win a title, with what I would assume most people would see as an even deeper roster and rotation than what OKC had last season when they lost to the Mavs. Mark is not the first and will not be the last coach to experiment and explore his roster throughout the regular season. Most teams and coaches who do play 10, 11, or 12 deep in the regular season tend to back off of that strategy during the playoffs and shrink their rotation down to 8 or 9, but not this OKC team. The Thunder throughout the regular season in the playoffs had a point differential of plus 1,243 points in 105 games, setting an all-time record for point differential across the regular season and postseason in a single year. That isn't something that happens by accident, and more importantly, isn't an achievement you can get with a thin roster. To be able to play at an all-time elite level like that for a full 82 and then another 23 games in the playoffs, you have to have not just talent or depth, but high-level depth throughout your entire roster and rotation that can be plug and play when needed. Put it simply, the Thunder were absolutely dominant this season and throughout the playoffs, and in major part that was due to their unique depth and talent pool to choose from on any given night. Although it isn't commonly seen in the NBA playoffs, Mark Daigneault, Sam Presti, and the Thunder were not reinventing the wheel by playing deep into their bench this postseason. In the past, teams like the beautiful basketball San Antonio Spurs in 2014, known for their unbelievable passing, unselfishness, and ball movement, the Spurs that season did everything by committee during their revenge tour, avenging their 2013 NBA Finals loss. San Antonio still had their big three of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili as their foundation, along with Greg Popovich at the helm, but they were also flanked by all types of great talent like a pre-superstar Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, Patty Mills, Boris Diaw, Marco Bellinelli, and Tiago Splitter coming off the bench. Another extremely deep NBA champion that I think can be seen as a direct descendant of that Spurs team was the strength in numbers Warriors in 2015. Led by first-year head coach Steve Kerr, that Golden State team routinely played into the double digits with their roster during the playoffs and put a heavy emphasis on sharing the ball. Obviously, guys like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green were the headliners, but Golden State also got massive contributions from the likes of Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut, Sean Livingston, Leandro Barbosa, and more. Even last year's champions Celtics also leaned heavily on their bench and depth on their way to winning a title. title. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were the cornerstone pieces and headliners, but that team was stacked from top to bottom with the likes of Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Derek White, and Kristaps Porzingis, to the point that many people looked at that Boston team as more so having a starting 6 than 5. And that doesn't even include the other bench contributors like Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, and Sam Hauser, who throughout the postseason were staples of a 9+ man championship winning rotation. Also, as recently as this year's NBA Finals, we saw OKC face a team that weaponized their depth at an extremely high level in the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton was the tip of the spear for that team, with guys like Pascal Siakam as the Robin to Hallie's Batman, but Coach Rick Carlisle often emptied the clip, leaving no stone unturned when it came to using his entire roster this postseason. Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin, and a guy who still gives Thunder fans nightmares in TJ McConnell all played a major role for the Pacers this season in helping them get to the NBA Finals. But enough about those other deep teams, let's talk Thunder.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
Recently, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce on their podcast, KG Certified, talked about the new age NBA where depth is more important than ever when it comes to winning a ring.
The recipe is from OKC and what Boston did and what Indiana's doing. You gotta have depth now. P, ain't no more 3, we gotta have 3, no. We gotta have 9. For real. We gotta have, this the new script right here, P. They have a solid 9-10 and they can really put a whole 5 in there and give you a whole start. I don't think none of the Pacers play over 34 minutes.
The Big Ticket just mentioned it, but the Pacers this postseason didn't have a single player average 34 or more minutes played a game. And on the other side, the Thunder only had 2 in Shai and J-Dub. Both teams were able to do that because of the depth of their rosters, and that trend could also be seen with the teams I previously mentioned, like the 2024 Celtics, the 2015 Warriors, and the 2013 Spurs. All of those teams, except for one, had at least 9 players averaging double-digit minutes in the postseason. I'm sure that there are a lot of coaches who might like to go deeper into the rotation to keep their starters fresh, but that isn't even an option without risking their opponents making a big run. The Thunder during this year's playoffs were not only able to keep their stars and starters fresh due to the play of their bench, but that same depth off the bench was not only able to help OKC keep leads, but many times extend them as well. To better illustrate and help explain the amount of talent and versatility on this 2025 NBA champion Thunder team, I've created what I'm calling the Heiarchy of Depth. Using this, I will go down level by level, explaining each tier, the player or players in it, and what they bring to the table in order of value to the team. At the top, we start with the Thunder's franchise superstar, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. What else is left to be said about Shai after his record-breaking historical season? Shai became the first player in 25 years to win MVP, Finals MVP, and the scoring title all in the same season. When all else fails, you always have the last resort of give the ball to Shai and he'll figure it out. He's become essentially an unstoppable scoring threat at all 3 levels, while also improving as a playmaker and as a defender. But what I think stands out with Shai compared to the average superstar is his unselfishness in terms of empowering his teammates. Similar to the likes of Duncan, Steph, Halliburton, and the stars from the deep teams I mentioned earlier, none of those guys monopolized the ball. All of them knew they couldn't win doing it all on their own and made a concerted effort to make their teammates feel involved and let them shine in their own way while still also leading the way and getting their numbers. And we saw Shai do that to great success this postseason, knowing when and how to empower his teammates so they would be ready for the moments when he needed them. Going down to tier 2, we have J-Dub and Chet Holmgren. Whether Jaylin Williams was ready or not to take the leap and become a real high-level secondary ball handler and score in the playoffs was a season-long storyline that OKC fans kept a close eye on. The bridge to becoming that player was a little bit rickety and had its fair share of hiccups, but most importantly, despite playing through a wrist injury that later required surgery, Jalen Williams showed up and showed out for the Thunder in major moments and helped deliver OKC a championship. Dub scoring while dealing with that injury is just mind-blowing when you remember some of his crazy scoring displays from this postseason, like his 40-point explosion in Game 5 of the Finals, but scoring wasn't everything that he brought to the table. As one of the more versatile defenders and players who can comfortably play on or off the ball, he fits perfectly in the Thunder as a guy who complements Shai and can also run the show in the secondary units when SGA is on the bench. Another guy who gutted it out for OKC on their title run was Chet Holmgren. After missing 40 straight games due to a rough hip injury that Sam Presti described as the most pain he had ever seen a player in before, Chet returned to the floor for the Thunder in February. His hip had healed, but that didn't mean he was totally back at 100% of the player that we saw pre-injury. But that didn't stop Chet from making a massive impact for the Thunder. Chet time and time again showed off his all-world defensive value as one of the best rim protectors and overall defenders in the NBA, like when he set the all-time record for blocks in an NBA Finals Game 7 with 5 rejections and a win the title or go home empty-handed game. Throughout the playoffs, there were some ups and downs for him on offense as he attempted to shake off the rust and play himself back into form in real time, but Chet was massive for OKC, having the highest plus-minus of any player in the playoffs at plus 169. We now move on to Tier 3, which focuses on high-level role players who know how to star in their roles while also playing off of the Thunder stars. Dort headlines this level, coming off his first ever all-defensive team selection selection and a top 4 Defensive Player of the Year finish. Whether an opponent plays the 1, 2, 3, 4, or sometimes even 5, if you're a go-to scorer or primary ball handler, the Thunder are more than likely going to throw Lu Dort at you and feel extremely confident about his chances guarding them as one of the few actual shutdown defenders in the league today. And on the other end with offense, we also have some steady improvement from Lu. This season he shot a career-high 41% from 3 on almost 6 attempts per game before shooting 34% from deep in the playoffs. The postseason numbers aren't just gaudy, but what I'm more focused on was his big-time shooting in massive moments when OKC needed it the most. Like Game 5 versus the Nuggets, Lu started 0 for 3 from downtown, but eventually came through in the second half in the clutch, scorching the Nets from 3 on 4 out of 5 shooting to help give the Thunder a massive series-swinging win. This time last year, the Thunder got the biggest free agent in franchise history with Isaiah Hartenstein. The former Knicks bruising big was coming to OKC, and most fans immediately wondered how he could amplify this roster as a rebounder and potentially help them reach another level in the playoffs. All those dreams came to fruition this postseason as Hart was exactly what OKC needed as a big presence down low, rebounding, protecting the rim, play finishing, playmaking, guarding the likes of Nikola Jokic, fitting OKC's playstyle like a glove, and being able to comfortably play next to Chet in the Thunder's double big lineups whether he was starting or coming off the bench for OKC. Alex Caruso was another big-time offseason addition to the Thunder that delivered and then some throughout the playoffs, but it simply AC was a playoff riser for OKC in 2024-2025. He was a high-level floor raiser and amplifier for the entire roster who made everyone around him better while making life that much easier on the team's stars. His presence as an experienced veteran who had been here and done all of this before was invaluable to OKC. A calming force on offense who knew when and which buttons to press as a scorer and playmaker. It would be hard to name even a handful of guys in the NBA today who can guard Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, John Morant, Nikola Jokic on any given night or possession, but Caruso can. He's a true defensive Swiss Army knife and disruptor who would have been a no-brainer for the best 6 man of this postseason if that award existed. Next up is Tier 4, and in my opinion, this is where OKC's depth really separates themselves from the majority of their peers today. A lot of other rosters can easily field 6 playoff-level players, but can you rotate 9+? Because that's what the Thunder just did on their way to winning a championship. After a great rookie season, Cason Wallace was a known commodity for Thunder fans, but Caso in year 2 during the playoffs had a bit of a coming out party for the more casual NBA viewers and media members. At only 21 years old, Cason was thrown immediately into the fire guarding some of the best players in the world throughout the playoffs and came out the other side better for it. Whether he was starting or coming off the bench alongside AC, harassing opposing ball handlers, Cason consistently made his impact on winning. He had a few young player moments, but more times than not, if you didn't know, you would have thought Cason was a 7-year vet out there with the way that he played, along with the obvious trust that Mark Daigneault and his teammates all had in him during massive clutch minutes in playoff games. How could a man who literally saved basketball not help your team win in the playoffs? Aaron Wiggins this season really leveled up as a shot creator, and that carried on into the playoffs too, providing the Thunder with a nice boost off the bench that took some of the weight off of the shoulders of Shai and J-Dub as a guy who can generate shots for himself and for others. He's a purely additive player that can easily slide into just about any iteration of a Thunder lineup and thrive in a role. He's a dynamic slasher and cutter who's also good for some big scoring spurts, along with the ability to help space the floor for his teammates. Isaiah Joe has been a sharpshooter for the Thunder basically since he became a mainstay of OKC's rotation a couple of years ago. Even if he's not hitting, he's a floor spacer other teams are forced to respect, and if his shot is falling from downtown, then the Thunder can start to avalanche other teams with big runs. With just about every recent NBA champion, you can point to a few games or even a series where a role player's three-point shooting has swung things for them. And with that being said, teams will always need a guy like Isaiah Joe who can catch fire from deep at any time to help spark a comeback or put the dagger into an opponent to extinguish the flames of a potential run. Spanning as a bridge between tiers 4 and 5, you have what I'm calling the Williams wildcard category. Both Jalen Williams, and Kenrich Williams were massive for the Thunder during the postseason. But why I call them wildcards is because their spot in the rotation was primarily based on matchups. Which is not a dig at them, it's actually a compliment in how you can go to either depending on your opponent and feel confident about what they bring to the table. To win a championship, you have to beat 4 different teams in a 7-game series. Mark Daigneault has stressed that no game is the same and neither are teams. How you match up from opponent to opponent can change rapidly depending on their unique rosters, skill sets, schemes, and more. And that could not have been more evident for the Thunder between the 2 wildcard Williams between the first 2 rounds and the second pair of rounds this postseason. J-Will is up first. He was solid in the Memphis series, but really made his impact in the Denver series as a defender the OKC could throw at Nikola Jokic. J-Will was incredibly solid in those minutes defending Jokic as a pretty mobile option as a big who could also space the floor. Jokic is going to get his numbers and draw fouls, and OKC's ability to also throw J-Will in there not to rack up too many miles or fouls on Chet and Hart were huge in helping the Thunder to win that intense 7-game series. On the other side of the Williams wildcard equation, you have Kenrich. It's kind of crazy in the way that these 2 players' minutes mirror each other, with J-Will playing 104 minutes against the Grizzlies and Nuggets before only playing a total of 38 against the Wolves and Pacers. Kenrich did a 180 in terms of his minutes versus those matchups. In rounds 1 and 2, he played a total of 38 minutes before tallying 101 in the conference finals and NBA finals. Against two opponents who loved to go small and didn't have a traditional post presence to threaten him, Kenrich Williams became a staple of the Thunder's rotation in the last 2 playoff rounds. A guy who's never afraid to get his nose dirty, plays hard, smart, and a malleable defender, Kenrich was huge against the Wolves and especially the Pacers off the Thunder's bench. We now rejoin our regularly scheduled program and get back to talking about Tier 5. This is the final level. All of these guys did have an impact, but it was mostly during the regular season to help the stars and starters stay fresh, which is super important but not the sexiest thing to break down when you're talking about a title team's rotation. Ajay Mitchell as a second-round rookie was one of, if not the most surprising regular season contributor to the Thunder. It was obvious how much the Thunder and Mark liked him when AJ was in the Game 1 opening night rotation versus the Nuggets on the road to kick off the regular season. AJ, throughout the regular season, was a super impactful player off the bench as a much-needed extra shot creator and free throw generator for OKC. Unfortunately, his rookie season was derailed by a toe injury that shelved him for most of the time leading into the playoffs, but I'm super excited to see what kind of role he has in year 2. Ousmane Dieng was another guy for the Thunder bitten heavily by the injury bug, missing big chunks of the season due to injuries to his calf, wrist, and a finger. When he did play, I really liked what I saw out of him as a young player continuing to improve, but just like AJ, I'm really excited to see what Ous looks like next year and if he can sort of put all of the pieces of his unique game together for the Thunder and become a more consistent rotational piece. Last up is a Thunder legend who's no longer with us. To be clear, he's still living, but no longer in OKC after being traded to the Washington Wizards before we even got to celebrate his honorary day in OKC after the ring. Dillon Jones was mostly known for his part as the permanent sub designated by Mark Daigneault against the Nuggets, which would later result in me getting my highest viewed video ever, so for that and a championship, we are grateful for DJ and wish him the best in DC. In the wise words of Kenny Rogers, you gotta know when to hold him, know when to fold him, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Although Mark Daigneault was pretty steadfast in rotating a large chunk of his roster during the playoffs, he also knew when it was time to fold him and trim the Thunder's roster during the postseason. In that same practice, media availability from last season that I mentioned earlier, Mark also talked about the idea of pivoting to playing fewer guys if necessary.
If things present themselves and it becomes the best thing to go with certain guys on given nights, that's what we're going to do. We're not afraid to do that, but at the same time, we're not going to just arbitrarily, again, tie a hand behind our back if it's not necessary.
Going to the 2025-2026 season, the Thunder will be experiencing a lot of firsts as a franchise. Their first time as defending champions and the first time that this team will have a target on their back from the beginning of the season through the end as the measuring stick and the squad to beat. Outside of the aforementioned departure of Dillon Jones, the Thunder as of right now will bring back 13 of their 14 roster members who helped them raise Larry O'Brien last season. They will also add a few new faces. Although he's been around and was technically part of the championship roster for OKC, it looks like we're all finally going to see the long-awaited regular season debut of Nikola, who hopefully can add a new wrinkle to this team as a playmaker and help the rich get richer in terms of OKC's depth. OKC also brought in another lottery pick with Georgetown center Thomas Sorber joining the roster. I'm not sure of how immediate his impact will be as a super young player coming off an injury, but I'm sure he'll be learning from some great teachers during his rookie season, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table for this team. And perhaps the biggest additions to this Thunder team going into next year are experience, growth, and age. OKC was a historical outlier in a lot of ways, winning a championship last season, and now they add the confidence of winning a ring, everything they learned through their experiences during that playoff run, and young players who are continuing to age and mature as they creep closer to the prime versions of themselves in the next few years. But what do you think? How important do you think the Thunder's depth was in helping them win the championship? What do you think about my hierarchy of depth idea? And what are you expecting from this OKC team in 2025-2026 as defending champions? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to my channel so I can keep making fun Thunder content like this for all of you, and hit that notifications bell so you never miss out on any of my future uploads. And as always, until next time, thanks for watching.